And good morning again. Sue, do we have those? Good. Before I forget about it, since I'm right at the start of the talk, this week is a significant week in our country, as some of you may be aware. And we borrowed from Reverend Sharon Dunn, who's from the San Jose Center, a sheet with some prayers on it for both the day before and the day after the election, if you would like to. They'll be on the, pardon me? They'll be on the board desk as you leave. Okay. So just if you would like the ability to be in prayer support for that process and for yourself in that process, that's available to you. Our talk today is on wholeness. And as you may remember, we're working on a whole year-long theme of creating a world that works for all. And all the centers for spiritual living around the world are working on the same theme. So we're taking a look today at wholeness. And out of wholeness, the vision that we're supporting with that is we see our world with an understanding of wholeness. And I love it. What an appropriate week to be remembering wholeness, right? That we are one. We are one. There was on Facebook this past week, there was a Christian organization that had posted this picture, and it showed a picture of both Donald and Hillary, and it said, both of these people are children of God. And underneath that it said, yes, both. And I thought, beautiful. What an understanding of, yes, this is the truth. We may like one better than the other. We may want to have one for a leader and not the other, but both of them are expressions of the divine, just like you and I are, right? And we sometimes disagree with each other, right? Have we noticed? But that doesn't mean we're less of an expression of the divine. It just means we disagree on the details of how to express that in the world. I was talking with somebody else that said recently that was talking about churches, and it's like we're all working on the same God. And it must, if God can be hurt, it must hurt to watch people fighting over the name of God and how to worship God and all the rules around God instead of just loving God. And so that's what we're about. So we look at the idea of wholeness. God itself is whole. It is whole. Okay? And if this is true of God, and God is the infinite presence and there's nothing separate from that, then it has to be true of us. You and I are whole. You and I are one of that infinite whole, and each of us right now is whole. And as I refer to every once in a while, we have this list that says, oh no, but Reverend David, about this, I'm not whole because of this, and this, and sometimes we forget that. I forget that. I have my own list, right? And so the truth is that even with the list, we're still whole, perfect, complete, as we are, and growing and becoming more. Ernest Holmes in the book, Can We Talk to God, says, each person is a center of self-conscious life. God is the life principle animating us. That infinite presence is what animates us. We are animated, enlivened. We are the life energy of God in expression. Ralph Waldo Emerson says that man is an inlet and may become an outlet to the divine. We're already inlets. We already are that. We don't have to do something to become that. We just are, by the virtue of the fact that we're alive and we're here and we're present. Stuff happens and we forget that, don't we? I forget it. Stuff happens. I'll speak for myself. Stuff happens and I forget it, and if that relates to you, I sometimes think of this life as almost a game of hide and seek, right? Where we forget the truth, and then we have the fun and the pleasure of reawakening to the truth. We start waking up and remembering. Okay? And so we're in the process of, as it says in the prodigal son story, we're in the process of coming to ourselves. We're in the process of waking up to who we really, really, really are, how magnificent we really, really, really are. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It back in the early 1900s. And she says the game is giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. Whatever you sow, you reap. And that's what every spiritual teacher and every tradition has said throughout all of lifetime, all of history. What we put out is what comes back to us. If we're working in a wholeness, then anything we put out into the wholeness, we're part of the whole. We're putting it out to ourselves, right? And so we're doing that. In a wholeness, nothing can be lost, not even my car keys. In a wholeness can be lost, okay? I might not remember where they are, just like I sometimes don't remember who I am, okay? But they're not lost. Nothing is separate. Nothing is separate. No one is separate. There is no other. There's just the one in all the many forms that it takes. That's who you and I are. Scientists, quantum physicists tell us that energy is infinite. Energy never grows more or less. It just changes form. It just changes its expression. And this is how the infinite is. It's in a wholeness, it just changes the form. We never lose energy. So when I give love, I don't lose love, right? It's just more love out or I just express love out into the world in a way and in a form that people can experience it and understand it, in a way that I can experience and understand it and love it. When we get confused, we get hurt and afraid when we forget that we're working within and as a whole. When I think that I'm separate, the greatest sin, if you will, the greatest mistaken idea that we can have is the belief that we're separate. We're separate from the divine, we're separate from our good, we're separate from each other, and we're separate from ourselves. And from that, everything else blossoms out into the whole sphere of the stuff that we forget, and the stuff that causes us pain. It's because we forget the truth that I am and we are all one. And so coming back to that awareness is basically our goal, our journey in this life. And we use our imaginations, our imaging faculty of the mind, to create all sorts of wonderful stories to pretend that we're separate, right? I've noticed that throughout history there's always some sort of an ending story, okay? The world is coming to an end. The world has been coming to an end for several thousand years, according to all sorts of different, people who talk about that. My life is coming to an end. Starting in my 20s, if I had an upset stomach that kind of lasted for a couple of days, I'd be sitting there going, oh God, I know it's cancer. I'm going to die of cancer at an early age. Somewhere in my late 50s, I finally said, I've been saying this for decades now, and I'm still alive. I've never bothered to get it checked out. I don't, apparently believe that enough to do anything about it. Maybe I'm just having an upset stomach. And I don't have to put that extra load on it, okay? So we have stories of our life is coming to an end, or some aspect of our life is coming to an end. We have a breakup with somebody, and there's all sorts of wonderful, famous songs out there that says, my life is over because you left me, okay? Doing my family right now with one of our children. And the life isn't over, is it? We've had people leave us, and we've kept on living. We've lost jobs, and we've kept on living. These ending stories we make up. Right now, we have wonderful ending stories running through the country that if a certain person gets elected, whichever certain person, doesn't matter which certain person, America will come to an end. Okay? I love it that we've also heard that America or civilization is coming to an end because of the young people today. They said the same thing, by the way, about my generation, right? And our generation, the older, our parents said that about us. Their parents said that about them. Their parents said that about them. And I believe there's something clear back in Aristotle or Socrates in the Greek history that said the same thing about that generation, right? It's all coming to an end because of the new generation. The church, whether it's this church or any church, will come to an end because of whatever. Or religion is coming to an end, or whatever. Okay? So there's always these wonderful ending stories we make up to scare ourselves, right? And they're just that. They're just stories. They're just stories we make up. I've talked before about Dennis Waitley used to carry around the newspaper that said, world about to go dark. Whale blubber supply almost gone. Right? Because that was the end back in the 1880s. There's always these ending stories. And then what happens when we have an ending story is we oftentimes, rather than sitting down and saying, okay, so what can I do to create the world that I want? We oftentimes go looking for a savior. Somebody to save us. Jesus is a classic example of the Savior. And the funny thing was, the people of his time, they wanted a different Savior than him. They liked him so much they killed him, right? The people loved Buddha so much that several of his own family tried to kill him. Okay? That's what happens with saviors. Eventually they have a different vision because the people of Jesus' time wanted him to save them from Roman rule, to kick the Romans out. That was what their Messiah was that they wanted. Okay? And he's sitting there saying, no, you don't understand. I'm here for my Father, the infinite presence's kingdom, for you to wake up to that kingdom. And then the Roman rule is going to take care of itself, and you're not going to care. Because if you're living in my Father's kingdom, everything else gets added. Everything else gets handled. Okay? But rather than doing the deep inner spiritual work, they said, no, we don't want that. We want somebody else. Thank you very much. You're out of here. Okay? We look for a political leader. You know, right now we're looking for political leaders. You know, we've been looking for political leaders throughout history. Okay? We look for a new hero somewhere or other in some form or another. There's a story of an old monastery in Europe that was, there had once been a beautiful, thriving monastery. People would picnic on its grounds and have a wonderful time. And eventually, over decades, it started to kind of fall into disrepair, and the old monks died off. And finally, they were down to 4 monks, and the grounds were kind of not being kept up, and people were not coming and picnicking on the grounds anymore like they used to. And the 4 monks were looking at each other, and they were kind of, it's like, this could be the end. They had an ending story. This could be the end of our monastery. You know, it's just the 4 of us. Who's going to take it on? We're all getting up in years, and who's going to take it on when we get older? And who's going to take it on when we die? And in the woods nearby, there was a cottage, and there was a Jewish rabbi from the nearby town that would come and meditate and pray in the cottage every once in a while. And the monks who were kind of in tune to that energy could feel whenever that rabbi was there. And so they devised a strategy. They asked the father abbot, he said, will you go talk to the rabbi, see if he has any ideas. See if he has any ideas to help us. And so the father abbot, decided he would. So the next time that they were aware that the monk was in the hut, the father abbot went over and knocked on his door and said, excuse me, rabbi, he said, I don't mean to interrupt your prayer and your meditation process, but we have a problem and a question. We were wondering if you might help us out. And the rabbi says, oh, come in, have some tea with me. And so they came in, the abbot came in, and they sat down, they talked, and the abbot shared with him what's going on. Our monastery is falling apart and falling into disrepair, and there's no monks coming in to take over, and we're concerned about it. It's just gonna go away. And the rabbi said, oh, I understand. He says, in my order, he says, there's very few young men that are coming back into being rabbis anymore. They've lost interest. They're all into the world and what they can get out of that. And so they sat there and commiserated with each other for a while. And finally, after a couple hours, the abbot thanked the rabbi and said, I'll return and leave you to your prayers and meditations. Thank you so much for your time. And the rabbi said, well, I'm sorry I wasn't more help to you. And so as the father abbot was leaving, and the rabbi stood at the door watching him, and the father abbot got to the gate and closed the gate, and the rabbi says to him, oh, by the way, one of you is the Messiah, and closes the door. The father abbot is sitting there going, what do you mean one of us is the Messiah? One of us? The 4 of us is the Messiah? So he goes back to the monastery, and they asked him, what happened? What ideas did he have? Well, he said, well, he didn't have any ideas. He said they're going through the same sort of thing in his faith tradition too. And he says, but then at the very end, he said something really weird. He said, one of us is the Messiah. And they're kind of sitting there contemplating that and going, what? One of us is Messiah? And so they went off for a little while, and they're sitting there going, well, one of us. What if it's Brother Francis? He's so saintly, he's so beautiful, and we kind of put him down because he's so quiet and like that. But what if he's the Messiah? And what if it's Brother Joe? Maybe he's the Messiah. It can't be Brother Jerome. That cranky old guy, he's definitely not him. Okay? But what if it is? And what if we've been mean to him all this time? What if it's Father Abbott? And then after a little while, they paused, and they each by themselves came to a question, what if it's me? What if I'm the Messiah and I'm just not aware of it yet? And so they started to say, I really need, if it could be that I'm the Messiah, I need to get into my spiritual practice more. I need to get into my prayers and my meditation and my doing what it is that and my connection with the Spirit more. And if it's one of them, I need to treat them better than I've been treating them, with more respect. And so they started going around treating each other as if they were the Messiah, treating themselves as if they might be the Messiah. And pretty soon, one day a family came out to picnic on their grounds. And it was the first time they'd seen anybody picnicking on the grounds in years. And so they went out and thanked them and greeted them. And The father of the family said, well, when I was a boy, my parents used to bring me here to picnic, and I know it's not quite in as good a shape as it was, but I wanted my kids to be able to have that experience. And so one of his sons began to ask one of the monks, what do you do here? Tell me about what you do. And he got interested, and he says, can I study with you? And they asked the father, and the father said, yes, it's perfectly okay if he studies with us. And a little while later, some more families came to picnic, and more families came to picnic, and a few more boys got interested in what do you study here? Can I study with you? And pretty soon it started growing again. Because each of them started to treat each other and themselves as what if you or I are the Messiah. So I have a question for you. What if you're the Messiah? What if I'm the Messiah? What if each of us in here is the Messiah? What if each person we meet on the street, that homeless guy is the Messiah? Neil Donald Walsh was a homeless guy for a while. What if you or I are the Messiah? What if Donald or Hillary is the Messiah? Breathe, for those who need to. What if? Could we start to treat each other with a little more respect? Could we start to treat ourselves? What if I'm the Messiah? Am I willing to become more deep in my spiritual practice and more authentic and more caring about who I am? What if I'm the Messiah? And start to take that practice in and work with it. When we recognize that we are within the wholeness, we recognize that each of us is the Messiah. Each of us is. It's not a what if. Each of us is the Messiah. And we're the Messiah, first and foremost, of our own life. We're the Savior, we're the anointed one in our own life. Your life is the only life you get to live, right? You don't get to live my life. I don't get to live your life. I get to live my life. You get to live each of your individual lives. Each of us lives that. Can I be the Messiah? Can I be the anointed one in my own life? That is my question. That is the thing I contemplate. Florence Scovel Shinn tells us that our imaging faculty, our imagination, it makes a huge difference in our life. She quotes Proverbs 4:23, where it says, keep thy heart, or imagination, with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of all life. Out of our heart issues our life. Out of our imagination issues our life. The images we see, how we perceive the world, and then how we interact with the world based on the images we see. We've all met people who see something that's different from other people, and then they act as though it were true, right? And sometimes I've done that. Every once in a while we get into the don't confuse me with facts, I've got my opinions sort of mentality. Okay? And we're absolutely certain that this is true. And I can speak from personal experience that it's really embarrassing when you finally get it that no, there was another viewpoint and it was actually a more valid viewpoint. Okay? Keep thy heart or thy imagination with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And Proverbs goes on to say, keep your feet away from evil paths. Evil is just living backwards, living off, out of alignment with Spirit. Keep your feet away from those paths. Turn not to the right nor to the left, but remove your foot from evil. Come back to the center of who you are. Come back to the truth of who you and I are. And stay on that truth. And stay on that truth. I sometimes have to remember this, and sometimes it's challenging when stuff gets into our minds and when we get into panic and we get into fear. Okay? And that's the feet going off the path, because in God there's no panic or fear, right? There's only this one knowing that all is well. So when we align our imagination with the truth of our oneness with wholeness, we allow the true nature of the divinity that we are to flow freely. When we align our imagination with the infinite presence, with the one life, when we allow the love, when we allow the wholeness, when we allow the joy, when we allow the abundant good, when we allow the life energy of the divine to be what we are in alignment with, everything else takes care of itself. So let's have an experience of that. I invite you to, if you're comfortable, take a moment to relax in your chair. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes gently. Take a deep breath. Letting yourself relax a little bit more, take another deep breath. And just relax. Now I invite you, as you take your next breath, to use your breath to imagine that you're pulling your energy from the base of your spine up through your spine and out slightly above your head, as if you're pulling your attention, above your body. Use your breath to pull your attention up just above your head, just above the crown of your head. Hold it there for a moment. Take another deep in-breath. Pull it up again. Hold it there for a moment. And one more deep breath, pulling the energy of your body from out of your body up into above your head. And from this vantage point, with your attention slightly above your body, notice if you can begin to experience your oneness with the whole of life. Notice if you can experience your wholeness. While you're in this vantage point, take an area of your life where you might have forgotten your wholeness for a little bit. And allow your imagination to create an outcome that is in alignment with wholeness. Perhaps you've been afraid of an outcome. Allow your imagination in this heightened state, in this lifted above the human condition state, to create an outcome that you would enjoy that is in alignment with the wholeness of the universe. It's for the highest and best of all involved, including yourself. Notice what that might look and feel like. Allow now imagine your body vibrating at the level that would allow that to be your wholeness. Allow that to be your outcome. And allow your attention then to return back into your body with this new perspective. Taking another deep breath, anchoring that into your body, anchoring in the awareness of your wholeness, anchoring in the awareness of new outcomes. And again, taking another deep breath. Allow yourself to be aware of yourself sitting in the chair that you're in this room here. And when you're ready, wiggle your fingers and toes to ground yourself in your body and gently open your eyes and be present back here. It's a meditation that we can use to lift ourselves kind of out of where we get stuck in our bodies to get above it. You know, I've sometimes used the metaphor of sometimes our problems seem like we're standing at the base of Mount Shasta looking up at this big problem. But if we would take a plane and get above Mount Shasta, or even a spaceship and get farther out, we can look back and Mount Shasta doesn't look so big anymore. Okay? And we can do that with our consciousness above our problems. We can lift up and look back. And from that higher perspective, our problem doesn't look so big anymore. We tap into an infinite consciousness that sees it in a very different way. And we are one of that. So this week for your spiritual practice, I invite you to contemplate your oneness with infinite wholeness. To contemplate that you are one with that. To just simply sit in that awareness. That whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on in the world, you and all of life is still one with the wholeness, the infinite wholeness. Let this truly sink in. Ernest Holmes calls it become subjective. What I call it is feel it in your gut, where it really becomes a part of how you really perceive life. Not just a nice idea, but a way that we really truly begin to perceive our lives. And then the second practice is to use your imagination in the direction you want to go. Oftentimes we're using our imagination for our fears. And worry is the classic example of that. Worry is the misuse of the imagination. It's out picturing a negative outcome, which can sometimes be about our income, but it might be about other things too. but we use our imagination in worry to picture a negative outcome. Use our imagination to picture the outcome that we really truly want. And as the Proverbs say, keep your feet or your thoughts on the path. Keep going there. Stop getting pulled off. Are you willing to work with those two practices this week, contemplating our wholeness and using our imagination to create the outcomes we want, to move in the direction we want to go? Great. Me too. I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes. This is out of his wonderful epic poem, The Voice Celestial. And this is Spirit speaking back to him. You must escape at last from bondage to the sense of separation. Hold it true that he is not alone who knows that he is ever one with the eternal me. The secret of existence is unbarred. And even now, the temple bell is heard, inviting all to worship at the shrine of eternal truth. This is the sign that he will find the Father's Spirit hid within himself and do whatever he has bid. The Father's Spirit is within us, doing whatever we bid, that energy. Fear not anything on earth nor in the universe. Unlike the prison door, the mind unbarred is free forevermore from superstition and belief in two. So we let go of our belief in duality, our belief in separation. Let's take that into prayer. So knowing that there is only one, there is only one life. There can't be God and something else, or else God is not infinite. So there is this one infinite presence by whatever name we have given it. Tao, Buddha mind, Vishnu, God, Spirit, the universe, whatever name we give it, it is beyond all those names, and it is one. It is all there is. It is the life energy, the vibrant wholeness of this universe. And because it is infinite, each of us and all of life is within this one. And this one is always for its own highest good. It is not self-destructive, or it would have been destroyed long ago. It is always for its highest expression of good. And we are expressions of that good ourselves, right here, right now. And so I speak my word, that this week we remember our wholeness. We remember our own wholeness, our own oneness with an infinite energy that is for our good, that is in a conspiracy for our good. We remember our wholeness and our oneness with an entire world, all of which is one with the divine. All of which is one with the divine. Whether people remember it or forget it, know it or don't know it, we are all one with the divine. And so I know that we live this week with this energy, with this awareness, that when we see ideas of separation or duality, we keep our feet on the path and say, no, I'm not going there. I'm standing in the truth of the oneness, of the wholeness that I and all the universe is. I trust in an infinite presence that knows exactly what it is doing, and use my imagination to allow it to work through me for the highest and greatest good. And for each of us who says yes to this process, for all the good that comes out of this, I am grateful. For the Spirit that moves through each of us, I am grateful. So very grateful. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form and expression, knowing that it knows exactly how to do this. We don't have to figure out the how. We simply stand in the truth of knowing the what, and that what is the highest and greatest good for all of humanity, for all of life. And so we affirm that as true by simply joining together and saying, and so it is. Thank you.